Hello everyone and welcome to the final episode of Astlibra Revision, the review. So yeah, I finally, went and gone and do it. I needed a holiday to, renew my strength and get over some things that were happening, but now we're here and now we're with the review. So yeah, I hope some of you are still waiting for this. And yeah, I'll structure it like I always do my reviews, so we'll start off with a few important points before we begin the very review itself. And that is, the first point is, as you probably guess, each review in itself is kinda subjective, and this one I will try to be as objective as I can, but this one is no different than any other, as in definitely will be some of my preferences and opinions will be bleeding into it, and it's very likely to be even a teensy bit subjective, even if I try not to, but that's a review, I guess. So this will be my opinion and others may vary, Second off, the game is bought with my own money. And that means no one is paying for this review, no one is paying me to say good things about this game or bad things, and no one influences what is in this review or what I say in this review. The third point, I try to make reviews spoiler free. I will talk about the story in a very, very general manner, either similar to the Steam summary store page or even more general, so if you would like any more info, maybe visit there as well. But yeah, I'll avoid talking about anything that happens during the playthrough that's important to the story, unless a video game has a mechanic or a large portion, not maybe dedicated, but mixed in with a event or something that is kinda a spoiler. Then, if that is the case, I would put tags in the video, give you a second or two of skipping if you want to, and then proceed. But in this one, there will not be any such things. And the last point is that this video will be divided into sections. All the sections will be visible in the timeline below and in the description of the video. So, if you're only interested in certain parts, you wanna hear about certain aspects of the game, feel free to just, pick and choose what you want. You don't need to listen to everything. So, let's load our save file and, without further ado, let's maybe start the review, shall we? So, onto a general overview part of the review. Did anyone of you have that one moment where, just out of sheer curiosity or luck, you stumbled on something interesting? Did you have any of those times where you're simply bored and out of boredom you tried to search a random Steam page or your library or maybe the front page of the store and see a variety of games that are, some are good, some have mixed reviews and some are simply bad? You dig through the lists and by a magical stroke of luck, or by the, off chance that any of your friends find something cool and one of them goes, "Hey, did you hear about XYZ? You should give it a try." And then you find one of these games that are a hidden gem. And even though at first glance you would yourself not give them a chance, there you are, sitting 100 hours in, and you can't get enough. Well, this is one of these games. Astlibra Revision is, as you can probably see, a side-scrolling 2D JRPG game. It's filled to the brim with action, suspense, and beautiful mystical worlds. Did I mention also that, as the hero of this game, you'll be tackling time and fate itself as your main adversary? No? Well, then now I did. Ha! Didn't think I would do that, did ya? So, even if you are not keen into those time and space shenanigans, because many titles did that, and neither did it good, then surprise? This one actually does it in a well-devised manner. I was surprised myself, as I'm not a fan of this trope, basically because it's very hard to do it right. And this is maybe not the most perfect example of that trope, but it's a damn well done one. So yeah. And if this general overview interests you, I think we should need to dive in a bit deeper into different parts of what makes this game what it is. And the first, more in-depth part would be the story part. So, the story finds our protagonist in, like a true JRPG fashion, nameless and with a terrible childhood. Not a new one, huh? Not a new one. So, the only things that we remember are a tragedy that has befallen our hometown and our one and only friend from our childhood that we had. So, right before a dreadful moment that would be the culmination and our, well, untimely end, we just black out. And then wake up in a strange hut, in an even stranger land, with, out of all things, a talking crow other side. So, things get interesting. It seems as that crow saved us, and at least at the beginning, he presents himself to us, as our new friend, and that, ladies and gentlemen, is the beginning of our great journey. So, honestly, it kinda sounds intriguing, doesn't it? And it is, believe me, it is. We are thrown into an unknown world, filled with monsters, gods, and common people, each with their own problems. And, to boot, without much memories that we can cling on to. But we have our bird friend, and it seems like he also has access to some strange and mystical powers. Well, to start, he can talk, and that's not so common with birds as the last as I checked. So how can this not be great? Well, even the world itself, as we quickly came to notice, seems to be governed by mystical powers. The first example is the forest that we find ourselves into. The forest is named the Frontier here, and well, it basically stretches abnormal amount of land. And at the start, we basically thought it was infinite. So yeah, I think that's a good example of what kind of things we could expect in this title. But soon, all of this mystical fantasy world will be turned on its head, and like it is in all stories, we are the ones that can do something about it. And during our journey, our hero meets a lot of people, which we help overcome some personal problems, obstacles, finish maybe some quests, or make them fulfill their promises to other people. And in turn, they lend us their help, and some of those people even become our friends, who aid us in the journey in various different ways. The game does a fantastic job in introducing new characters to the story, in my opinion, and in making them feel important, and should I say endearing to us. Endearing and important. And with us helping them in their troubles, we get to experience their personal growth and change in their character of some of those people. And I would like to say that the one that has written the characters did a mighty fine job, and I would risk saying that it is done better, than some of the big AAA productions. And I'm not saying this lightly, it really is. Even though maybe the presentation is not the same level, but the way the characters change is something to learn from, you know? By the end of the story, you will get the feeling that this team of dumbasses that are your friends, which you went through hell and back with each other, is something you don't like to leave. That's something that makes you feel at home. Something that seems, you know, dear to you. And as you can hear, as you heard before, as the story department, there is nothing fancy. Nor is there any novelty to be found here, as we have the good old protagonist saves the world from evil trope, but let this not fool you. It gets interesting and more complex fairly early on, I should say, and I think a solid foundation for the beginning is one of the strengths of this title. It doesn't necessarily want to do something that has never been done before, but it falls back on established ideas and tropes and kind of tries to play a spin of its own on them, you know? So maybe if the start is kind of basic, it quickly starts to turn to something really interesting. And the story does have a decent pace, even though there are a few moments like where it seems like it's kind of padding it, but only a tiny bit, so it's nothing lost here. The story gives the players the way it is presented and the way we gain information about what is happening in the world gives the player an agency, a reason to push the story, and at the same time acts like a sort of an anchor to the character and to this world, and to the motivation behind some of those events that take place, and the feelings behind the characters that put those events into motion. There's another thing that the game and the story does a very good job of, conveying the feelings behind the characters, and behind why did they do certain things in certain moments. Because even though there are moments when you think you know somebody, you've been with this character for an hour, 2, or maybe more, he does something that you did not expect. And I like this, because they don't put everything right before you. You need to work for it. You need to kinda, I would not say guess, because it is presented to you, but you need to tie some loose ends with each other, and if you do some coherent reading and thinking about certain events, you can even get the gist of it before it is presented to you, and I think that's another big plus. Anywho, yeah, like I said, there is not that much of padding, and we are introduced to, well, other agencies or other players in the story, and to quite a few mysteries along the way, which will or will not be uncovered fully. It depends. But also, the stakes seem to be growing after each of those uncovered mysteries. And soon that makes us have to deal with quite a big of a threat. And something not what we thought it would be at the beginning of the journey. All in all, the story is well written, and only a few moments are victim to pacing issues. And, well, the problem is there may be some translation issues, and whether that is by lack of experience or resources, then it is visible. It is visible in some moments, but it's not a big detriment to the story. You can get most of what is presented to you without any problems. The issues are mostly not preventing you from comprehending what is being told, but mostly, I would not say that I'm being nitpicky, but mostly about, well, differences between languages and someone trying their best, but resulting in trying to translate something one in one from one language to another, and the structure of one language may fit the sentence while the structure of other language may not, so you sometimes can get into weird territory here with the sentences, but everything is well presented and everything will be known to you when you read the dialogue, so there is no problem here, just a teensy nitpicking here. But we gotta stay objective, you know, we gotta stay objective. So, I would like to reiterate, the story is a big plus here. Even though the presentation, as you can see, is maybe a bit basic, but it more than makes up for it in the solid story department. So yeah, we got through the first in-depth section, so I would like to interest you in the next one. There I should say even more important than the story, or at the very least on par with it. And that would be the gameplay. So, to the gameplay. Let me just move my cursor away from here. Gameplay wise, we are treated to something similar to a Castlevania title, with some subtle twists here and there which the game decides to maybe make this formula its own. I will show you some moments here. The game utilizes primarily platform gameplay with action combat. As you can see, you can move, jump, run, and it would be a nice idea to equip something if the game would tell me it actually took off everything I had, which it didn't. So after that blunder, let me just equip a couple of items. I don't want to overdo it here. Just a few that I remember from the top of my head that were actually useful. And here we go. And maybe some lollipop action. And yeah, that will be enough. So, as you can see, there's, like I said, well, primarily action-based combat. Sorry, need to get my bearings straight again. It's been a long time since I played it. So yeah, back to what was I saying. The game utilizes platform gameplay with action elements and combat. You can move, run, jump, double jump, glide, hover for a set period of time. And the combat itself allows us to use, as you can see, quite a nice set of weapons, which each of their own has different characteristics. Each type has different characteristics to it. Other than that, we can use magic, known as possession skills. Need to charge them up to show you something. Unfortunately, that was too little. For example, so that counts as magic. We can use also Charon skills, thanks to our bird friend, which are mostly physical skills, like discharge, or skills that help you in your adventuring on the minimap, or help you crafting or gathering those mining materials and other things. So yeah. The weapon and armor arsenal, like I showed you, is nothing to sneeze at. You have 8 pages here of weapons and 4 of shields and 4 of armors, which is quite a high degree, and 7 of accessories, of quite a high degree of customization, I should say. Sorry, I don't mean to be all over the place. And like I said, that big gallery of weapons behaves differently depending on the type. Here we have a basically lightsaber, but when I try to change it to, for example, let's say a hammer, we have slower, broader, far-reaching strokes. And when we change that to, example, a stave, I was going to say, but language happened, you get a swing with also a magical effect, ranging from close quarters magic to some far traveling projectiles to some nice AoE stuff. It all depends on the weapon, really. So as you can see, you can choose what suits you the best, and there is quite a few options to choose from. Light hitting knives, blunt weapons, further reaching spear weapons stabbing your enemies from afar, two-handed slower swords with a great arcing slash and good reach, hammers that tend to destroy your enemy's break gauge, axes, whatever you can imagine is here, even claw weapons, which have very close reach but very high attack speed. So we have those different characteristics, and each one of those weapons changes combat in a subtle way, and changes your approach to enemies and combat in a subtle way. Like for example, I told you that blunt weapons blast the enemy's stagger gauge, and that enables you to combo it with Charon skills that give you additional bonuses when the enemy is broken. Or the staves, which allow you to be safe and attack from a distance. So yeah. Also, I would like to mention that there, aside from staves, are also ranged weapons in this game. But the ranged weapons behave teensy bit different than normal weapons. You also have throwing weapons. Even though we have that many options, well, let's move backwards a little. So, as you can see, the ranged weapons primarily act as items, more than weapons that you can equip. So, you equip them on your quick slot, you use them, and either they fire and forget, you just use them, or you have to aim, reload, well, the reload is automatic, and use ammo for them. So, yeah, that's not the most comfortable implementation of a ranged weapon, if I should say. So that can be cumbersome, as you can imagine, and that's why I think that a primary range style is kind of more of a fitting for a challenge run than a comfortable play style that you can go through the game the first time. I think that's my opinion. Honestly, I didn't use these weapons all that much. I did use the crossbow a lot, allowing me to safely position myself and snipe some enemies, that for sure. Was not a fan of throwing weapons, and didn't use any guns or whatever we can get later on. I did use bombs, but those you have to use for accessing different types of places, but also you can throw them down and make it explode on enemies, and I did use that for a bit to check it out if it's viable, and it is viable, but like I said, it is cumbersome. So the same kind of goes for mage builds. They are not that cumbersome, but as you can see on the HUD, we have the ST gauge, and that's your primary resource for magic attacks, since we don't have mana, as you can see. And charging that up with a stave is kind of weird at first, because if you use the stave for its long range capabilities, for example this one, if you only rely on, for example, these orbs, they don't build that much ST, to be honest. To get the most out of the stave, you need to come closer, swing the stave on something, and proc the magical element on them. I found that works the best for charging your ST, and yeah, as you can imagine, as a mage, you probably will not want to be close up in the fray, so while that is a bit more comfortable and has more quality of life than ranged weapon have, it's still not the playstyle of a mage that you would imagine would be. So keep that in mind. Yeah, I don't know how comfortable it is to charge ST with range attacks. Let us check, because honestly that's not something I use frequently, like I said, and I don't know how much the ranged weapons actually charge that. So let's for science it during the review. There's always new things to learn. Let's see if the game will let us. Oh, so it is even not viable, because you can't. The range attacks do not... Yeah, I will die here. It is to be expected, as I am trying to talk coherently and play at the same time. So, as you can imagine, that can be a bit problematic in this playstyle, when you can't charge up a possession skill and can't use magic. And there are very good possession skills. Let's just load. There are very good possession skills in this game, some ranging even from basic fireballs to something I would call best in slot and, dare I say, overpowered, like the stone shield, which is a phenomenal thing, and I would advise everyone to give it a try and use it throughout basically the whole game, as it enabled me to even beat some pretty OP side bosses early on. So yeah, that's something that's S tier in my book. Hold on. Okay. So yeah, we even checked one thing that was bothering me during this review, so And as you saw also, back to the range style, before you set this up, it is quite slow. And it's not the most powerful of attacks, unless the gun is powerful, but I didn't use it. So you would need to basically play a mixed build if you want range, unless you don't want to use ST or possession skills at all. And I think that this means the game does not promote that playstyle as much as the good old basic melee. I guess it's kinda like that Bart Simpson meme where nothing beats good old melee. Not saying that it's not possible to play as anything else, it's just, in my opinion, slightly less encouraged by the game. Well, additionally, we got quite a few ways to gain power in this game. Starting off from the good old leveling and distributing points between various attributes, we get 5 points per level if I remember correctly, and we have 99 levels to gain. Which is quite a nice status spread that you can get, as you can see. And that's one way to get more powerful. Outside of the good old-fashioned beat enemies, get XP level up, we also have the Libra menu and the growth menu. Both of which we get access to really quite early in the game, as quickly as, well, in the first area or after the first chapter for the Libra menu. And let's start with the growth menu. The growth menu is, as you can see on the left side with a minimap, it's an enormous grid-based system here, where you basically go through these nodes, and each of the node is either a stat increase, a skill, an item, or something else. And even though it doesn't seem so at first when you get a measly +1 to something, those bonuses add up. And the growth menu is a home to a lot of stat increases. The amount of stats we get from the growth menu is bonkers. It's an enormous menu, you can't see that from here. I don't think I can, no, I cannot zoom out. It's an enormous menu, you get a lot of stats from it. And later on you get even more than just +1 here. Here you can see that it goes and goes. So yeah. Even though if at first it's not the most imposing thing, it gets better quite fast. So yeah, and like I said, not only do we get attribute nodes, but there are also hidden items on the whole tree, and skills, which you can acquire to use against the enemies, you know. The hidden weapons, if you actually stumble onto them in the right moment, can help you quite much when you're currently saturated in the chapter and don't have access to any more weapons or armor. You can get some cool items here with good abilities, and they can kinda change your playstyle in that chapter, or enable you to, well, activate more and get more power out of your current build. So that's always a big plus as well. As for the skills, the growth menu is the primary source of those possession skills that I told you. All those skills here are gained from the growth menu, aside from, I think, the first one, which you get in a story moment at the beginning of the game, if I remember correctly. So yeah, the big grid is also something to take note. This whole enormous, ginormous grid is also locked in parts. And we have two types of locks. We have locks that can be opened with a key, and those keys you also get on these nodes on the grid. So you gotta plan sometimes your pathing. And you can see a little degree to the sides, and you have the minimap, so you can kinda guess where something is. Especially in the first parts of the grid, where it's more dense than here. The later parts are mostly, well, a bit sparser than the first part. So that's the first type of a lock. You just get the key, and then when you traverse on a lock node, you use the key and you open up another part of the grid. But there are also chapter locks, and the part of the tree with a chapter lock unlocks only when you finish the current story chapter. And that's a mechanism to prevent you from becoming too overpowered, because you could just grind some points. As you can see, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 different type of force points, which we use on this grid. You could just grind them out anywhere and become ungodly powerful if there wasn't any chapter locks. But fortunately, the creators of this game thought ahead and gave us the chapter locks. So even though there is much power here, thanks to the chapter locks, each chapter does feel like you need to work for it, you know? And that's cool. I like the foresight of that. I like the foresight. So like I said, there's also the Libra menu, which you acquire at the beginning of the game, and it's a way to power up your character with a small, tiny minigame as well, built into it. And it requires you to put items on the scales, which are on the both sides here, and you need to balance the scales. You have the balances on the upper part, and we're currently at 100, which means perfect balance. So you can use various items that you have in your inventory, which gives you a use for every item that you found during the playthrough. Each item gives something else and has a different numerical value to it. And you can play around and balance it in the current part of the story where you are and get additional bonuses. And that's pretty cool, because not only it gives you something to do, and it's not a just simple click here, get bigger number, win. You also need to think about what you want, what you have, what you can use, and how you can balance it to get the most out of it. It's quite charming, really, and gives you an incentive to hold on to items and do something with them, you know? And yeah, as for the balance, it basically works like that the closer you are to 100, the more power the item gives, or likely the most of its power you get. When you fall off balance, you get a slightly lower percentage of the power that the item normally gets. And each item, like I said, when you try to place it on the scales, does have a description on what it does. It doesn't have a numerical value attached to it, but it has a degree, as in weak, good, epic, and the stats that it influences. You can check it in your status menu. That is maybe not the most quality of life friendly way to do this. If they do a game in the future, and with a similar system, I would like to have numerical values besides those attributes as well. So you can kinda not need to guess the amount that each gives you, but can freely see how much you get from it. So yeah. Also, in the later parts of the game, we also are presented with a socket and board mechanic. Yet another way to increase our strength beyond what it currently is. And that mechanic is based on drops and items found in the world as well. And as you saw from my previous, well, unfortunate dungeon dwelling moment, the boards do drop. And you have a sort of degree of influence on what you can pick for that item to have. There's also enchanting, which gives rough stats to the item. You can do that in a blacksmith. I think I should be able to show you quite quickly. It's a very basic way of gaining power, and it also uses items found throughout the world. Just basically pick a weapon or armor, any. Pick some items that you want to sacrifice or use for enchanting, and you see the added bonuses in the upper part. So yes, basic, yes, but yet another way to influence the strength of the character. And that's what, 6 ways or more? So the game is pretty generous with what you can do, and honestly it's fun. There's always something to do, there is always a way to get stronger and, well, more durable, and I like it. I like the way that it's presented, and I like it that it's not everything at once, that it is placed quite in a good manner throughout the whole game. well, in any given moment you have more than one way to increase the strength, so even if you are stuck for the first time you try an enemy or a new biome or a new boss, you can push through it with the aid of one of those systems. And also it is done in a way which prevents you from becoming godly OP. And that's a nice balance. That while using carefully all that is presented to us, we can outpace the enemies, and with good planning and strategy we can also tackle big bosses early on, as was done in this LP. So yeah, I'm a very big fan of the way this was presented to us and the systems here, and I think the gameplay is honestly where all the meat and potatoes is in the Astlibra title. Yeah, the story is good, but the gameplay is where it's at. Many mechanics and many things to do at once will prevent boredom, but it kinda sounds impossibly fantastic, doesn't it? And this is also where one minor gripe comes, at least from me, and that seems to be the amount of builds the game seems to be presenting to you, which you can do in theory, and the ones that you can comfortably really do. Because in theory, when you saw all those weapons and all those skills, we can do melee, ranged, magic, and a hybrid. But in actuality, I think that it's not exactly the case. And some of those playstyles are more cumbersome and fit a challenge run more than a comfortable first play run. And honestly, I think the game encourages and is designed to be played in a hybrid sort of a role, so that you would use both weapons and both magics. Maybe not specialize in both because you don't have that much points, but there are ways which you can circumvent that, and then are ways where you can become quite more powerful. So I think that's the designed way to play this game, to experience it all in a hybrid build. And that does not mean any other of those are not possible. It just means that it may not feel like the most optimal way to do stuff. And that's okay, not everyone wants the most optimal ways. I think you should strive for the most fun way to play a game. And if the most fun way for you is a magical range knife-slinging character, for example, then go for it. Why not? Feel free to pick and choose, because the game has a lot of options. And yeah, I think that would be all for the gameplay. Was the gameplay section? Yeah, for the gameplay section. So let's go to the next section, shall we? So yeah, before we move to the next section, let me take a moment to apologize to you guys, because I wanted this to be a nicely structured professional review, but it seems like it's been a while since I've done one of those reviews and it's getting hectic. I kinda was lost in a few moments here and there. Don't know why. I've done a couple of those and I seem to lose the touch. So I will try to be more rigid right now. And let's go through this as I planned. So, the next section is the audio section. And honestly, the audio section is, I think, the section that I had the most surprise with. This game has a large variety of tunes that it plays throughout the story. And with the tracks being selected in a careful manner in regards to both the current setting and what is happening on the screen, most of the time. And well, most of the time it works. As in, action and high stakes moments are filled with fast, riff-heavy music that it's really a banger. And calm or sad and melancholic moments are accompanied by piano or string music. Quite frequently we have choirs here and there and vocals, which is also great. There are even tracks where the vocals take the foreground instead of being in the background, which is a thing that we don't have very often in older RPG games or in JRPG games. There are the Persona games with the newer entries, starting from the Persona 5, where vocals were very prominent. And well, the Xenosaga had some of those, especially the X. But aside from that, I don't know, nothing comes to mind. Well, I didn't play a lot of new JRPGs, so maybe that changed. But yeah, here we have quite a large variety of titles. But there are also tracks that, in my opinion, simply do not fit anything that's going on. And I'm being serious here, listen to me. For example, rap tracks or metalcore or whatever core this is in for example, Nightmare Before Christmas biome, which has a nasty boss which will make you try him a couple of times, and that means you'll have those rap music things blasting in your ears X and Y times when you're trying to beat the boss. And if you can't concentrate on the myriad of projectiles, that music definitely won't help you here. And you can go to that episode. In that episode I also had a problem with my audio interface and the music is a bit louder than my voice. So you can hear what I had to put up with, you know, while I was playing. And for me that was a bit irky, you know, that's not a great fit, and I don't know how you kind of justify that. I don't know, that being a side area, so they freestyled it or had some fun with it, maybe, but I was not a fan of it. Also, funny fact is that any, and I mean any, futuristic setting must have a form of electronic or techno music or its subgenres playing. Which is not to my taste, but some tracks honestly were okay from that. Even I can say it. But it is kind of funny when a future setting or a future town has techno music. Because, yeah, what would it have, I guess? That's in the mind of someone who designed it. Yep. Honestly, it's all around the soundtrack is okay. It's very good even, with in places it being a little worse than in others, but on the whole, it is on a really high level, and from a smaller production, that is quite unexpected if you ask me, especially if you juxtapose it to the way this game looks. You would also think that it has a pretty basic soundtrack, maybe from some stock sounds, or maybe from some artists that wanted to make name for themselves and had some free tunes to give out, but no, this is done on a very high level, very professionally. And that's a very big plus for that. And because, you know, honestly, the soundtrack is a central element to what is happening on the screen. A bad or monotone soundtrack can really break a stellar game. Really, even if the gameplay is top-notch, a really badly chosen or designed soundtrack can make or break a game. Thankfully, Astlibra defends itself very well here, and I mean very well. So yeah, next section, and honestly it's a section that I kinda dreaded to dive into, and not without a reason, but it's a well, short story here, because why is that? So yeah, the next section is the video section, and this is the part here when I kinda had a dilemma, because when I first heard about the game from a friend, I went on the Steam page because this title that didn't mean anything to me. I'd never heard of it, so I booted up the Steam store, filled in the search tab, and go and peruse the game page. And of course I went to the screenshots. And when I opened them, I thought to myself, this looks straight out of an RPG Maker. And to my surprise, it wasn't. Yeah, this is not an RPG Maker engine, even though it shares some visual qualities for better or for worse, depending on how you like those type of games. It is its own engine, developed by Keizo, the developer, through, I think, a labor of love of 15 years, if I'm not mistaken. It was a heck of a long development time. So yeah, it has, as you can see, good looking backgrounds, and it has okay particle effects when you see the spells and the boss attacks, the enemy attacks. It's okay, really. And essentially, that would be all I could say in the visual department. But don't get me wrong, it is impressive for such a small project to pull this off. I don't know how many people worked on this, if it's... Well, we had the credits, but I don't know how many people actually developed the assets and the programming. I know that it is a small team, and it definitely is impressive then. And it definitely was a labor of love, like I said, 15 years of doing this. My god. I could very well say that graphics are not important. Definitely not as much as the story and the gameplay. And it is a truth, that is a truth many of us hold dear, and many of us tell ourselves or other people and hear from other people. And I actually agree with that graphics aren't all make or break. I very much prefer basic graphics to stellar gameplay and good story. But it may not be the same for everyone, you know? And I understand that. I understand that some people could be put off by the way this game looks and feels, that the movement and the animations can be stiff, as you see. And from my experience, I would advise you to at least give this a chance if you like these type of games. Even more so because of the fact that this game has a free demo. So you can try it without any losses. The gameplay is top-notch, the visuals, and while the visuals are a thing that was made with limited resources and limited manpower, they do not hold the game as much as the screenshots could imply. Really, the screenshots do this game a bit of a disservice if you ask me. Additionally, I would like to add, that you don't need to shell out some money, even though this game is on sale, and I don't remember the cost, but it's not that great. It is your money, so you don't need to shell it out. First off, you could try it before you make a decision, because no one can make that decision except yourselves. And if the graphics are not that of an obstacle, then you can try the feel of it with that demo. Yeah, I think that would be a good idea. Because what better way to get a feel of a title is to experience it yourself. Not that someone is saying to you, oh, this is good, this is bad. Why not try it? And you have the ability to do this with this title, and I know that the demos are additional work and additional things needed, but I would like more games to give us the options to try them in a limited way. There is always the Steam refund policy, but I found that some titles are designed in a way where you get access to things that make it more fun to you, depending on your playstyle, deeper than the amount of time you have to make a refund. I know that you can negotiate with Steam, but sometimes it's stressful and we don't want to stress, we want to play and have fun. So a demo is always a good option. So yeah, remember, you can always try this one. And I think that concludes the video section. And next up would be the Misc section, but for that I need to move to a place where we don't have those beats in the background, because I would like to think through some stuff and maybe do a quick discussion on some points. And for that I would like to have, well, not that thing in the background, sorry. Also, as back to the video section, to the last part of it, I may have been a little stressed because, yeah, it's been a long time since I've done this, and I'm kind of sounded like I was suggesting something or anything. No, I was not. I was just kind of stressed out, and really, the only one that can make choices and govern what you do and what you spend on is yourself. So really, that was just me saying that there is a demo, so don't worry about it. I'm just weird in this way, and I'm kinda stressed out because I didn't do this in a long time. Okay, let's stand here. Let's have some calming water and nice grass and castle visuals to calm us down. Okay, so the next section is the Misc section. And in this section we take a look at what the internet and other peeps say about the game. I mainly get the quick reviews, not the lengthy full ones, as the quick ones better fit my established form that I have for the Misc section. So I go on Metacritic or Steam comments, and because most of those are fairly short, and I can pick from various ones to get a paragraph or two and debate on it, and how I feel about it. I discard hundreds and zeros that have nothing in them to justify the score. They just say, yay, great, or no, it sucks. I discard them right out of the bat. And I always try to pick from the broader spectrum, so you have good ones and a few bad ones, you know, to give you a view of what's up and different points and different personalities, what they say about what's being presented here. And before I begin, I would like to also say that Astlibra is a game that currently sits comfortable on Steam at all-time reviews overwhelmingly positive 95%. So let that tell you something about the game. Anyhow, let's tackle some of the reviews, and we'll start with gaming outlets. So first off, sorry, let me adjust the microphone. First off is RPG Fan, and they gave the game a 90 out of 100. And the review is as follows. Ultimately, Astlibra Revision is a resounding success. Keizo should be incredibly proud of what they achieved after 15 years of work, designing such an intricate gameplay systems and plotting an engaging narrative that rivals the work done by large teams with big budgets behind them. If you can look past the somewhat amateurish presentation, there is a glittering diamond in the rough here. One that transcends its humble freeware beginnings into one of the best gaming experiences I had all year. And to RPG Fan, I would like to say I agree. First off, amazing that it had 15 years of work. It was definitely a labor of love, and it shows the way it mixes the elements, the way that some of things are designed, and even the way that they are structured. Because in different parts of the game you get different new mechanics. There is even the fact that you can be in the last, I don't know, quarter of the game? I think it's the last quarter or third, and you still get a new system to use and to manage. It's amazing how much thought was placed behind it. There is always something to... You don't feel like, oh my god, it's again the same thing over and over. You're just like, whoa, I wonder what this area will have for me. Honestly, it is like that. And I agree, and I said this by myself, the presentation is a bit basic, but that depends on how much you put on that department. You know, if graphics are really important to you, this will not go easy with you, you know? But yeah, I also like the experience I had with this game. Next up is Touch Arcade, and they also gave this game a 90 out of 100. And they say, I quote, Astlibra Revision is an outstanding game, and one I didn't even see coming. It takes a little time to get going, but once it does, this is a genuine ride that you won't want to get off of. You can sometimes feel the game's patchwork nature at times, but that doesn't do much to hurt what is otherwise an amazingly fun experience. If you like action RPGs or are just in the mood for a bonkers story, you have to play Astlibra. And yeah, honestly, I also did not see this coming because I didn't know anything about this game. This game was recommended to me by a friend, and big shout out to Juan Zucom for recommending me this game. It's a stellar game, thank you for this. And I went in blind, and whoa man, that was a ride. And while I honestly did not feel the patchwork nature, I was so into it that the systems that's put in kinda came in natural as to me. But I know where he's coming from. Some things can be kinda weird at first, and before you get into it, you're like, I don't know, this is maybe an afterthought, or maybe this is something that's out of place, but when you dive deeper, it seemingly seems to fit one another. And that's good designing by me. And it is a fun experience as well. I agree with that. And I also agree with the statement that this is a totally bonkers story. Really, it is. And it does pick up quite fast. The beginning, the very, very beginning, seems like you get the exposition. It's, like I said, nothing new, traditional JRPG trope, etc., etc. But then it just goes on and on and on. And suddenly you're doing this and that, and the stakes are this, and you're finding time, fate, gods, and everything at once. And that's just bonkers. Really, it is. So yeah, I agree with that one. Next up, we have Tech Gaming. And they give this game 82 out of 100. And I quote, Astlibra Revision is an antithesis of hurried development cycles and design by comedy. Instead, 15 years of indie effort has produced an action platformer where stats are just as important as the timing of your sword or staff swings. Extending a fantasy world that feels familiar but also invites discovery, it's a confident title that ranks among the very best adventures found on the Switch, because that was a Switch review. I wouldn't say that the stats are not as important as anything else. The stats are important here, but I also know from the comments, from I think it was Kefka, that told me that in the comments that there were runs, and even he or she herself, sorry I don't know, said that tried a no stat gain run, which is bonkers, I should say. People are trying it, people love this game as much. The last time I heard about such bonkers run is when Final Fantasy X came out and people did the old no item, no sphere grid, no nothing runs. And yeah, the last time such bonkers thing were happening. And yeah, I think that the long development cycle did work for this game. And I know why a normal company could not do that. I mean, you have people on a payroll, you have shareholders, you have expectations, etc. I know, 15 years it's just too much. But some companies just shell out a game every year without much changes and polish and etc. And that's just not the way to do this. So, next up, Nintendo Life, 70 out of 100. Astlibra Revision may not be a truly great game, but it is most certainly an interesting one. At the very least, it is unafraid to challenge JRPG conventions in unique ways, while also demonstrating mastery of the genre's most basic tropes. It can feel a little too archaic in its design and haphazard in its pacing, while the vaguely Flash game-esque visuals are a bit of a letdown. On the whole though, it proves to be a worthwhile experience, and one that we would especially recommend to fans of older RPGs. If you can look past its faults, there is a lot to love about Astlibra, which suggests you'd investigate if your interest is piqued. Well, honestly, I don't know what they're talking about challenging conventions in unique ways, as I did not experience this with this game, and it's not a bad thing. They do not need to challenge them in unique ways. And I feel that I'm more agreeing on the part of the review that said, demonstrating mastery of the genre's most basic tropes. With that I agree with. I don't know what unique ways, because honestly most of the stuff was done. Even some complex stuff that they tried to do here and there, it was done in different titles, it really was. But this one does it very good, that's the difference. The difference is application and not formula. So yeah, and Flash-esque visuals, I don't know how old you guys are, but I remember Flash games. These are not Flash-esque visuals or animations, no they're not. So yeah, don't agree with that as well. But yeah, it is a worthwhile experience, and one that I would also recommend. And I do agree that maybe fans of older games will feel more at home than fans of newer games. But, like I said, You can try and decide for yourself. So anywho, that's all from the gaming outlets. There were also one or two lower, but the arguments in them were just... I felt that the reviewer did not play the game, or saw one or two things that triggered them and refused to play more. And I would not debate them, and I actually deleted them. I had them at the beginning and I wanted to debate them, but I read them time and time again and I felt, no, this is not a thing I would like to debate, because that person certainly did not play with good intentions or misunderstood something. It's not that I don't agree with some things in those reviews, it's just that I think it's something went wrong there. So I didn't place them in this review. Now, onto the user reviews. First off, we have... oh, I think this is all from Steam. No. First two are also from Metacritic. So we have 10 out of 10 from Ramo10. Astlibra Revision is a true masterpiece. Everything comes together beautifully in this grand adventure. When I thought I was close to the end, I was actually about 25 to 30% in, and then there is a shocker of post-game content. Considering this to be the first JRPG to surpass FF7, it is unbelievable that it's getting so little attention. Don't agree that it surpasses FF7. FF7 was a good game, and I'm from the generation that it was a breakthrough when it came out, and I like the game. I really like the game. I am a fan of Final Fantasy games, but I would not say that FF7 is the be-all end-all JRPG of all time, as some people tend to make it. Though it is revolutionary in its own way. Is this surpassing it? I don't know. For starters, those are kind of different takes on the genre. These are not the same JRPGs. One is traditional turn-based, this one's action platformer, so not the same. But I will agree with the length part of this review. I also thought I was near the end when I was saying in the video, and then people in the comments said, whoa dude, no, you're not even in the middle of the game. And that honestly surprised me, because I didn't expect it. And the game does a cheeky thing where it kinda leads you to believe you are near the end, but you really aren't. I like that. Really like that. So next we have 9 out of 10 by Gary Lineker. What a game. The combat is fun, but the story and characters are like something out of the most insane 90s or 2000s anime. In a good way. It's an over-the-top, mind-bending, ridiculous adventure. The music is also incredible, and it has nice artwork. The combat does descend into mindless spam at times, otherwise it's an all-round great experience. Yeah, sometimes you're just feeling like you're more or less flailing around than strategically engaging enemies. Sometimes it is like that. And it kinda is something out of like a bonkers anime, when they still went for those not safe but really avant-garde, freaky, mind-bending stuff they did. The artwork is also great. Maybe not the animations you see here now, but when you have some flash screens, and when you have, for example, the equipment graphics or other things, those are honestly looking very good. Very good, as well as the animated sequence between chapters. That one is also great. So yeah, those are from Metacritic, and now we head to Steam for a few ones. First off is Godchild on Steam. The best JRPG ever made, hands down. Amazing story full of twists, extremely satisfying combat, very rewarding grind of items and skills, insane soundtrack and bosses. Keizo, you're a genius, and sadly nothing will ever top this unless you make something greater. 10 out of 10, easily recommend playing to anyone. Finish the main game and then the DLC for the full experience. I won't play the DLC. I asked one what the DLC adds, and I don't think I wanna play it after so many hours on Astlibra, at least not right away. This is a good game. It's not the best ever made, hands down, for me, but it's very good. It's near the top. Really, it is. I agree with the story. Satisfying combat. It is good combat. It really is. And the grind is also fun. I didn't feel it being a chore. It was good. Soundtrack is cool. Bosses are cool. Yeah. Next up it is Dark Cloud. And he says, or she, the game is amazing. Combat is fun. Grinding is rewarding. Art is unique. Music is awesome. Number of ways you have to strengthen your character is impressive, and the story is insane in that it just keeps going. This game made me feel like only Elden Ring has before. Every time I thought I was at the end, it kept going, adding more layers and little by little progressing towards an even more satisfying ending. Time travel is almost impossible to do without running into consistency and logic problems, but I think this game does it well enough. The only negative is at the start of the game. I didn't get into the game at first because of the combat. At the start of the game it's very button mashy and just feels like you have outpowered the enemy. I don't get this sentence, but it quickly moves beyond that when you start learning skills and battle techniques. Charon abilities also add extra layer to the gameplay, of which there are many, learned through mastering the huge number of weapons, armor and shields. Very original game, reminded me why I used to love JRPGs. Highly recommended, I think it deserves a lot more attention. So, agree here that the combat, grind, etc. Also, as you can hear, each person has a way they feel about the game and something to compare it to, and that's great, and that's why I say each and every review is a bit subjective and the preferences of the author do bleed into the review, like we can see here. I think there are some logic problems with the time travel take this game has, but mainly they are a bit later on, near the end parts. There are some, and I was talking to them when we were hearing them in the Let's Play. But yeah, it's actually pulled off decently, I agree. And the negative about the start, what Dark Cloud said, I think I get what he meant. He meant that it's button mashy and it feels like the only way to win against the enemy is to basically overpower them by sheer damage or stats, because you don't have much options to use in the beginning. And it may seem so, yeah. So I think that's what he means, or she. Next up we have the last user review I have, and it's from Burps. Bless you. 7 out of 10. Could see that it's a low budget game, story was decent, gameplay was far too repetitive. End. Like I say, focused on the presentation, maybe it's a big deal for him. Did pay attention somehow to the story, but he didn't like the way the gameplay was structured. I don't know how much he played, I didn't see the amount of hours recorded, but it was not to his liking, I guess. So yeah, that's it for the Misc section. Finally got through it. So now we're nearing the end. And now we go into the whole meat and potatoes of this video. The my review part of this video. So honestly, it's a dreaded moment for me of giving you my own opinion, and like I pointed in the intro, trying to be unbiased and objective as much as I can in this form, as much as it allows me to. And even though you very well can hear sometimes my personal experiences and preferences during a review, I always present both the pros and cons that I found and feel that a game that I currently review has. And with that said, I truly do believe Astlibra is one of those hidden gem games. Yeah. It is like you heard through the review, a labor of love this game is, yeah. That labor culminated in a game that mixes different playstyles, mixes some known good old Castlevania playstyle with traditional JRPG tropes and grinding, crafting, character progression, this, that and all. Is it new? No. Is it groundbreaking? No, of course it's not. But does it have to be? I also think no. I do not think it has to be. But what I do think is that it does what it does in a very charming and definitely very meticulously made way. Some things it does, like the whole character building and making you feel for your friends, your acquaintances that you acquired throughout the story. You genuinely see the friendship becoming something more and more. It's a feeling seldom big budget games do capture. Not to mention this whole quirky world, where some things are wacky and some things are, downright silly, but all of them seem to fit effortlessly well into the whole world, the way it's crafted, which is quite impressive, really. And there are a few things that I will of course list as cons, because, come on, nothing is perfect here in this world, and some are honestly minor, but there are ones that are unfortunately bigger. And for the minor ones, I would say translation and description issues are frequent. Yes, they're not rare. Language differences make that you cannot simply translate sentences one-to-one, and even with decent effort, you are left with minor language goblins lurking here and there. And this game is also a victim to that. Sometimes the sentence seems a bit weird. Sometimes, the subject is omitted in a way which could make sense for one language, but not much for the other, and etc. There are more of those problems. There are but those are minor things. And fortunately, you can get everything from context if you're a conscious leader. But that does make it so that sometimes an item or an ability or a skill has a description where you go like, huh? So I need to do this? And then it turns out it's not the case, it's kind of something else, but you can make that out if you try it, But that is something I need to register as a con, a minor con. As it doesn't have really a big influence on the whole game, fortunately, and I think it stems from, unfortunately, budget issues, as translation is a costly beast, and with the game or the studio, or however you should say, having this being a small team, you did not have much resources to play with, And yeah, like I said, if you're a conscious reader, you can make everything out without problems. So I will list this as a minor con. But next is a bigger con. And yeah, some people will not agree with me here, and they will say it's fine, but honestly, I don't think so. Not in every moment this happened. Yeah. So when I was LPing this game, parts of the story were written sometimes in a weird way. What I mean by that is as if the story creator sometimes wrote themselves into a corner with a nuance of a particular thing and needed a deus ex machina to free them up from something. And that's more present in the later parts of the story. In the beginning, there weren't much moments like that, but in the last part, yeah, we can see them. Honestly, we can. And yeah, that's one thing. But also, the other big thing is the fact of, and you also may not agree with me here, the weird humor. And let me clear this up so there won't be any misunderstandings, like with one of the reviews that I read. I'm not a man that is offended by weird humor or anything. I grew up in the 90s, and when I was growing up, the TV played for us children in, early hours, reruns of the original Dragon Ball, from where I am. We have the translated Dragon Ball original, and Professor Slump, or Hamtaro the Hamster, or Crayon Shin-chan. And if any one of you knows at least one or two of those titles, you can imagine I'm not a stranger to weird or downright perverted jokes with the bathroom humor, you know? And there is always a but here and there, sitting and lurking and waiting for the right moment. Sometimes those jokes are really not placed well. Throughout the game we have a few moments when there was a big development for a character, where the character went through hell and back, had his soul torn out, rinsed and forcibly thrown in, mangled and tested. He bested his foe and came to a supposedly cathartic moment. And yeah, we had to throw in a butt or pervert joke. Yeah, it's most prominent with Gao, and honestly he had one moment where you genuinely feel sad for him, what he had to do and what he had to go through, and then just went with the weird humor. Honestly, I felt mad in those moments, especially in that one moment that I'm talking about. The people that played the game probably know what moment I'm talking about, I won't spoil it, but I honestly felt mad. They made it such a way. It was really a moment where there's supposed to be, you know, where you see much growth, and they're supposed to have that cathartic, it finally ended moment. And yeah, they do this. Like really, I get what they wanted to do. They wanted to break the tension. They didn't want this moment to be all sad and have everyone, you know, down with what happened and all. And other characters try to break tension and try to elevate the moment, you know, but all that just wasn't it. It just wasn't the moment to do that. And in my opinion, honestly, one of the few people that can do those types of things, that can intersect extremely sad moments with weird and downright silly jokes in a way that somehow fits, is Oda-san from One Piece. And even he, with the things he can pull off and they work, even he doesn't insert those kind of moments that close to each other, because he knows that will destroy the whole scene. And unfortunately, this is a lesson to be learned here. Oda waits for an adjacent scene or adjacent event to break up the emotions first, and then he inserts those tension breakers. And what I think it would be needed here as well. This should be here. And it definitely hurts those moments, which are very masterfully crafted. You do feel the stuff the character went through, you know? And then you do that. Yeah, so to be more precise, the con itself is not the joke, not the humor, but the breaking of strong story moments, the immersion and the feeling you have for characters. And that is something I genuinely cannot glance over in an outright amazingly crafted production. I just simply cannot. Yeah. But we came to a moment that I think it's the right moment to present my score. And that score is a glorious 9.5 out of 10. Yeah. The game has it all. It just simply does. It's more of a fine craftsmanship than a true innovation. And its groundbreaking comes in its solidness and the amount of work put into what seems to be a basic function, but done well, so well it evolves into a full-blown feature. I recommend this game without a doubt, even more so that it has a free demo that's being offered constantly. And that 0.5 was deducted from the cons listed by me, and honestly everything else that the game has and how well it is done makes up for it. Certainly if you are a different taste when it comes to writing, or taste or sense of humor as other reviewer was, It may be a bigger obstacle to traverse, but I think it's worth it to give it a shot. And I say this seriously, and I mean it when I say that I hope big studios and bigger productions do not forget about little productions like this, and where in olden times we had little studios, indie studios, who were just staring at the back of giants. In nowadays, I find that the giants find themselves behind the small guys. I find that these kind of games should serve as material to examine when developing something big, and a good model for iterating on and expanding upon. So, my wish, if I could make one that is, would be to have studios learn and examine one's work like in a weird and quirky art gallery, instead of trying to one-up each other, you know? And I would put Astlibra in that gallery, so we can learn how to craft an endearing and charming relation between the characters, how to use the basic fundamentals and forge them into something that's really a solid foundation to build upon, how to up the stakes in the story, and how to unravel a mystery of a world piece by piece. Really think it's that good of an implementation of that we should try and examine and take some notes, you know? So yeah, thank you for listening, and thank you for your time. I hope to see you guys in future LPs, and as an ending statement, as always when I do these reviews, I would like to leave you with one of my favorite quotes from a good old master, and that is, eat well, sleep well, and play well. Thank you everyone, and most importantly, cześć!